Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of ICT Spring. My name is Christopher Ponterotto. I am the Communication Specialist at Docler Holding Luxembourg. And for this morning, I'll be your Master of Ceremony. Today, here for the Digital Summit, our theme is Digital Society, which is shaping tomorrow's society through digital technology, building smarter cities, and improving access to e-government. I would like to thank all of you for coming today, both virtually and here in attendance. This event is one of Luxembourg's finest for people who want to share a common theme in ICT Spring. I want to give a little bit about myself. I am a New Yorker, born and bred. I've been in Luxembourg now for about 2.5, 3 years. And to be completely honest, I did not know so much about the country or so much about the ICT scene here in Luxembourg. I'll always remember the last day before I came overseas. I had a little get-together with some family and friends, and they were saying a bunch of different goodbyes to me. And as an American, I want to share with you some of their responses. Mind you, they knew I was coming to Luxembourg. Good luck in France. Do they speak English in Luxembourg? Have fun in Germany. Now, obviously, I knew that these weren't the most insightful responses, but soon after I arrived, I realized that Luxembourg is a great place for ICT. After attending different seminars, after meeting colleagues and meeting other connections, I realized that this country and all that it does for a digital society is the place to be in Europe and globally. That being said, I want to give a very special thanks to, my company, Docler Holding, and also to the Farvest team. Charlotte, Margot, and everyone, you've done a great job with preparing this event. So I think a round of applause is necessary. Just a quick forewarning before we get to our welcoming words. I apologize in advance if I mess up some accents. I could barely pronounce my own last name correctly, so just giving you a little heads up. All right, so to introduce this morning's session, I am pleased to invite on stage the CEO of Docler Services. Gabriel Paal is an international business professional, having worked in North America, Europe, and the Middle East. He's a graduate of the Rotterdam School of Management, and he brings over 15 years of executive experience with focus on operations and major transformative projects across many Forbes 500 companies. As CEO of Docler Services, Gabriel oversees the strategic, financial, and operational leadership while continuing to accelerate the company's growth. He is a fluent speaker in 5 languages, and he specializes in business and project management, transformative and agile business development, and effective, innovative marketing and sales management. Everyone, please welcome the CEO of Docler Services and my boss, Mr. Gabriel Paal.
Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. My name is Gabriel Paal, and I'm the CEO of Docler Services. Today marks the 12th annual ICT Spring, powered by Farvest here in Luxembourg. Since 2010, this event has been the melting pot for innovation in the digital, tech, and science industries. We're excited that this event gets underway for another successful year for the ICT space community here in Luxembourg. We at Docler are proud to be an active member of this community and support this conference. I believe that during such unprecedented time the world has experienced over the past year, it is very important to keep events as ICT Spring running and improving. As an innovative IT company as ourselves, Docler believes that these new challenges trigger curiosity, creativity, and possibilities. Before we get started with today's summit, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously helped us make this event come together to become a success. Charlotte and Margot and the entire Far West team, this incredible event could have not happened without you. Sincere thank you from Docler and from myself as well. During the day, you will hear from esteemed members of the ICT community as they speak about current and unique topics and ideas for a digital society. You will have the opportunity to cultivate your understanding and point of view on how tomorrow's society is being shaped through digital technology. Whether it's building smart cities for a sustainable future or forging a smart sport as tech ball, which you will hear more about later today, there's always room for transformation in all facets of digital society. But I don't want to spoil any more of the topics that our speakers will talk to you about. So I will really wrap up very shortly by saying again, thank you for Far West for making this happen. Thank you for the speakers and all of you today for listening. Enjoy the rest of ICT Spring, and thank you again for being here today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gabriel. All right, so again, during the second day of the Digital Summit, inspiring local and international speakers will join us to share their insights and answer diverse questions, such as how can digital transformation thrive? How can a digital economy contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals? And how can we build smart cities for a more sustainable future? Today, we have the great honor of counting on the participation of the Luxembourg Minister of Digitalization for an official introduction talk. It is therefore my immense pleasure to announce on stage Mr. Marc Hansen.
So, dear Gabriel, dear Christopher, thank you for your words. And I can tell you, Christopher, if I travel abroad in my private life, which exists sometimes, and I'm out for dinner or for lunch and talking to people, and they ask me, where do you come from? And I hear the same responses where Luxembourg is. So you're in Germany, you're in France, and then I have 10 minutes to tell them what Luxembourg is, and afterwards they know it for the rest of their lives. And if you tell us today that you, after 3 years living in Luxembourg, you have the same experience and the same arguments, I'm happy that it's not only a PR show of the minister being somewhere abroad and telling their Luxembourg is the best. If you tell me that today, that Luxembourg has really arguments and that the ICT scene and the organizations are great, I'm really happy, and I will tell during the next years when I go somewhere that I hear it also from Americans coming to Luxembourg, living there, that they have the same experience, and I will quote you here with your words of this introduction speak. I'm also happy, and I want to thank also the organization to organize this event. I'm really happy, and I have to tell you, dear attendants, that I can see some faces. It feels so good to be somewhere again in presence, even if we had plenty of video conferences, and that is really a great situation for the ICT scene and the digital world, but I really like also to see some faces, real faces here in the room, and that's one of the main points that I appreciate also nowadays, and the last months have been quite hard, and I try to give you also an outlook of some policies aspects and trying to show you all what happened also during this pandemic. Since the outbreak, in fact, of the pandemic, the digital innovations are reshaping our society, economy, and industries at an accelerated speed. Indeed, in Luxembourg and around the world, the pandemic has contributed to an important digital leap forward. In a digital society, new technologies contribute to huge opportunities. It improves citizens' lives, assures better performance and accessibility to many areas of our daily lives. Fields such as health services transportation, energy, agriculture, manufacturing, retail, and last but not least, public administration benefit a lot from the integration of innovative digital solutions. During the pandemic, we had to rely on digital solutions to be able to work as well as to keep our social life. We came closer to becoming a digital society in which new technologies are integrated into the public and private sector to support our daily routines. The Luxembourg government aims to become and support its population in becoming one of the world's most advanced digital societies. To reach this target, it is of utmost importance that all sectors work together because the strength of Luxembourg's ecosystem relies on interdisciplinary collaborations. On behalf of the government of Luxembourg and to facilitate towards a digital society, I signed the Berlin Declaration on Digital Society and Value-Based Digital Government. This declaration underlines the importance of our European and democratic values and our fundamental rights in the field of the digital transformation of public administration. Another important step to build a digital society is the Electronic Governance 2021 to 2025, a strategy jointly developed by the Ministry for Digitalisation and the Government IT Center, adopted earlier this year. The aim is to promote transversal digital accessibility, develop user-centered services, offer attractive online public services, and invest in citizens' trust in state online services. This year, we all have witnessed a real progress in the usage of the digital public services. The myguichet.lu transactional platform broke its own record by exceeding 2.6 million transmissions of administrative procedures from January to August 2021. This is an increase of 146% compared to the same period in 2020. On top, the recently launched myguichet mobile application has been downloaded almost 150,000 times, and 900,000 operations have already been done in the last 2 months. All of these results confirm the ministry's aim to continue expanding the e-government. Additionally, to build up on these efforts, I commissioned a study to the OECD which analyzes the digital transformation of public services in Luxembourg. This study will provide us with key recommendations to continue developing a digital government to support a digital society in Luxembourg. Both the public and private sector must collaborate and benefit from the synergies to achieve the common objective of becoming a digital society. In this sense, I would like to highlight just a few initiatives run by the Ministry for Digitalisation. At the ICT Spring 2020, I have announced the creation of a GovTech lab in Luxembourg. Its aim is to accelerate the development and improvement of Luxembourg digital public services through calls for solutions to integrate external actors in the digital transformation of the public sector. We have closed our most recent call for solutions called Trust My Data. The new challenge consists of developing a global concept and implementing the various technical bricks for issuing digital certificates verifiable by the state, which could help citizens to get official documents in a secure and digital way. Ultimately, the GovTech Lab's ambition is to improve the quality, user-friendliness, and efficiency of the services offered to citizens and businesses. Another key aspect of a digital society is adopting and integrating new technologies to benefit different actors. An initiative contributing toward this is the public sector blockchain, used to imagine and experiment with new blockchain applications dedicated to the public sector or involving exchanges between the public and private sectors. This blockchain should help improve the transparency, reliability, and security of information system and digital processes in the public sector. In this context, a collaborative project between the Ministry for Digitalization, the Ministry for Higher Education and Research, and a Luxembourgish bank will be presented tomorrow. In terms of blockchain, the government is also involved at European level through the European Blockchain Partnership. This project aims to set up a European blockchain in order to set up interoperable and cross-border services such as support for a digital identity. The Ministry for Digitalization has also set up a consortium with Infrachain, the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, LIST, and the Interdisciplinary Center for Security, Reliability and Trust, SNT, in order to submit the EPSILUX project for the implementation in Luxembourg. The use case consists of digital diplomas, which will allow an automatic verification of their authenticity, and the students will be able to deposit diplomas in a secure digital wallet. This project can lead to tremendous progress in the field of transmission and availability of data from official sources. In addition, in future, it will be possible to add other documents to the digital wallet, for instance, driving license, residence certificates, and so on. And hopefully, with the support of variable credentials, transmit them virtually from one entity to another, internationally speaking. These projects are very important to provide citizens with reliable and interoperable technological solutions and creating the necessary infrastructure for the exchange of data from reliable sources between the public and private sectors. In a digital society, states must ensure that digitalization is done in a secure manner so that the public develops the same confidence in official digital documents that it has in an official paper document. Another aspect of building a digital society is to provide a simple and predictable framework for citizens and businesses in their relations with the state. In doing so, the digitalization of public services and administrative simplification must go hand in hand to achieve the desired result. This is why, to further meet the needs of citizens and to develop and optimize public services as well as products, such as public apps, a new platform will be launched soon, which will enable citizens to take part in the simplification and further development of administrative procedures. This participatory platform will allow citizens to discuss and transmit proposals, be it directly on the platform or in co-creative workshops. Last but not least, it goes without saying that although we develop and implement many new solutions, there are still citizens that want to benefit from digital solutions but are not able to or do not have the tools. In this sense, the state must also assist those who are least likely to have online access or to use technologies and digital solutions. To support the citizens in being part of our digital society, I will soon present a national digital inclusion plan. The plan sets out a whole range of measures and new initiatives to ensure the digital inclusion of every citizen. As we look forward to a time without COVID-19, we should not forget the lessons learned, especially in the case of digitalization. We must work together to become a digital society, and it is key that all actors across the public and private sector are included in this process. Digital innovation is an opportunity for governments, for businesses, and for each individual. We must continue to leverage this opportunity and build our digital society, all while ensuring the protection and inclusion of every citizen. In this sense, I wish you very fruitful discussions during the whole day. I'm really happy that you are here and that this event is organized. Together we have a lot to do. Let's do it. I try not to quote perhaps some commercial ads, which is really not bad. I could quote them too. And I hope that for all the attendants being in Luxembourg, you leave also the country and you tell everyone, as Christopher, as myself, tell everyone outside how interesting Luxembourg is, that the ICT community is doing really well, that the government is ready and the government moves quite quickly in this context. And last but not least, that you enjoy also in this after, it's too early to say it, but in this after COVID-19 period, a little bit the nice city of Luxembourg and the country. It is one thing to discover Luxembourg online, but you have also to discover it, to travel to Luxembourg, to go around, to see our city, to meet our people, and our people are a whole lot of nationalities living here in Luxembourg. And I really hope that you enjoy also these moments during your stay in Luxembourg. Thank you for your attention.
Minister Hansen, thank you very much for the speech. What I liked really much is when you mentioned that this is an opportunity. And again, from my time in Luxembourg, I've always noticed that when it comes to a digital society, that this country is always 2 steps ahead on the international scale, and it continues to have new initiatives, such as what Mr. Hansen has mentioned, and it seems as though there's a lot more to come within this country and for Europe as a whole. Again, thank you very much. So now let's dive into the first topic. The title for this presentation is Technical Standardization for a Digital Society. Now, for this interesting intervention, we are welcoming Jean Lancrenon, head of the Standardization Department at ANEC GEE, an economic interest group that supports ELNAS, inter alia, in its standardization missions. Jean, please welcome me on stage.
Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Christopher, for the kind introduction. Great thanks to Farvest and to ICT Spring also for this opportunity to speak. Yes, I'm Jean Lancrenon, and I work at the ANEC GEE, and I'll be talking to you about technical standardization for a digital society and what it means for you, for all of us here. So this doesn't seem to be working. There we go. Great. So technical standards, they've been around for a while now in our analog world. They apply to products, they apply to services, they apply to processes, and we have many, many examples to choose from that we can discuss. We have vehicle standards on, say, tires, rims, internal combustion engines. We have standards that are more of the process type to help us manage the work of education organizations. There are standards for the health industry to show us how to manage, care for, operate medical equipment, which is quite important. We have overall security standards, for instance, giving us requirements for firefighting equipment, among other things. We know all about these documents in the sense that we know they exist, we know that they provide us with quality, safety, when used right, efficiency, and also their ability to really set a common language in which to express problems and solutions to those problems. Sometimes, because they operate in the background, we tend to forget about them, but we know that they are there, that they are all around. At our regional level, the European level, it might be a bit more obvious that the standards for the analog world are there because, say concerning toys or certain electronic appliances or perhaps even chemicals, many other examples to choose from. We use technical standards also in support of EU legislation. This makes them a bit more visible for us as it gives us things like CE marking, which we're all familiar with. But our society, it is migrating at least a part of itself to a more digital world, as evidenced by, for instance, the computerization of mechanical equipment, our cars, the uptake of personal computers at home. This has been around for a while. The adoption of information technology for communication, for documentation management, the advent of the internet, which has really revolutionized our lives in the last 30 years. More recently, we have seen newer paradigms such as cloud computing, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and even blockchain, which we heard about in the previous talk. And so accordingly, standards are also migrating to these more digital topics to provide those same benefits that we mentioned before of quality, safety, efficiency, and a common language in as seamless a way as possible. If we go back to our examples from earlier, we can see that to some extent, a lot of these analog topics have their digital counterparts, such as connected vehicles, online education, electronic health, and of course, cybersecurity. But what is the importance of technical standardization anyway? Overall, it's a voluntary effort, so why get involved in the first place? There are two axes along which we can view this. One of them is application, and the other one is participation. First, applying standards. Standards are essentially answers, or try to give answers to the question, what is the best way of doing this, of solving this problem? They're sets of good practices or requirements to bring a certain level of quality in solving some broad problem. As such, you will see that applying them increases, for instance, competitiveness. Typically, a standardized product would have the edge over a non-standardized one. Cost reduction. Why would you spend time and effort and energy to develop something from scratch when a solution is already there that you can simply adapt to your needs? Interoperability. Solutions in systems will interface better if they are operating on the same agreed-upon set of requirements. Next, we have participating in standardization, in standards drafting. This is also voluntary work, but it can have benefits, can have immediate benefits. One can anticipate market requirements in order to not be caught off guard in one's work. Perhaps even more interestingly, one can actually shape market requirements by directing what a standard's content ought to be. This is valid both for core work, for core business work, but also, why not, internal processes? Make your own know-how the standard. So standardization carries with it not just a quality aspect, but an economic one as well. Those who set the standards set the market, and this can be potentially at a global level. So the importance of ICT standardization, or also standards in general, it has been realized at various levels. For instance, at the EU level, it is a very strategic issue. We already saw a quick example of how it supports legislation, but it has more breadth than that. ICT standardization and standardization in general have their own special place in EU's priorities. There is a regulation on European standardization. There's an annual union work program on general standardization, and there is even an annual rolling plan for ICT standardization to really set the bloc's priorities in terms of ICT standards development for the completion of the digital single market. So if we quote this program directly, ICT technical specifications ensure the interoperability of digital technologies and form a cornerstone of an effective digital single market. So clearly we have this importance grasped at the EU level. What about in Luxembourg? It turns out the government has also realized the importance of standards and standardization, and in the ICT domain in particular. In fact, there is a 2020-2030 national standardization strategy signed by the Minister of the Economy, accompanied, among other things, by a national 2020-2025 policy for ICT technical standardization. And overall, the strategy and policy are articulated around the promotion of use of ICT standards to try and reap the benefits that we've already mentioned, but also the promotion of the participation in the standards drafting process and the representation of Luxembourg to give Luxembourg a voice in the relevant international and European standardization committees. Finally, there's also a strong will to create and reinforce ties between technical standardization and research and education. All of these activities are conducted by your national standards body, ILNAS, a public administration under the authority of the Minister of the Economy. ILNAS are further supported by the economic interest group ANEC. So these are your standardization partners in Luxembourg, giving the market a say in the major standardization organizations ISO, IEC, CEN, CENELEC, ETSI, and ITU. But we still are missing a piece of the puzzle, at least in this presentation. And who are we missing? We are missing you. We are missing the market. Luxembourg implements policies to keep the country a leader in the ICT landscape. Examples of this include everything from the previous talk, but also the Digital Luxembourg Initiative, the National Cybersecurity Strategy, the 4th edition of which recently was output, the Data-Driven Innovation Strategy, the Strategic Vision for Artificial Intelligence in Luxembourg, and many others. As a result of this encouragement and, of course, of the efforts of the ICT market itself, the ICT market in Luxembourg is extremely vibrant, and this shows. We are 10th in the EU's Digital Economy and Society Index, out of 28. We ranked a spectacular 3rd in connectivity. Even more spectacularly, perhaps, we were 13th in ITU's Global Cybersecurity Index for 2020. And the national standardization strategy is a part of this overall effort of supporting the ICT digital society. And while I'm happy to say, even proud to say, that we have 79 national experts, delegates, in ICT standardization, in addition to 16 members of Luxembourg's market directly registered at ETSI, I'm not going to be shy about it. With over 2,900 ICT companies in Luxembourg, representing a workforce of over 20,000, simply put, we want more. We would be happy to have more. We would be happy to have you involved. Remember, ILNAS can be your voice in this process, but you need to tell us what we have to say. So concretely, what could you do in all of this? What is in it for you? Businesses can use standards first, whether these are for products affecting core business or internal processes. I'd like to stress that using a standard should not be viewed necessarily as some monolithic affair. Just because you happen to buy a 160-page standard, which seems cumbersome and complicated, does not mean you need to comply with everything in it overnight. Your objectives can vary from cherry-picking a few good requirements to start with, all the way to certification grade compliance, but it should not be viewed from the get-go as an intimidating process. In fact, cherry-picking good requirements to implement is better than not doing anything at all. You can also influence ICT standards by becoming a national delegate in your topic, free of charge in committees from ISO, IEC, CEN, and CENELEC through the national standards body. Again, the participation level you would bring to this depends entirely on your needs. It's up to you. It can be anything from simply commenting on draft standards a few hours every couple of months to leading the entire development of a standard, of a technical standard that really impacts your core business. Over here, actually, you have a breakdown of some of the ICT technical subcommittees, giving you an idea of the topics covered within ISO and IEC's Joint Technical Committee on Information Technology. You see older topics such as coded character sets or software engineering, to newer topics, cloud computing, AI, IoT, going through some major topics that will always be relevant, cybersecurity, for example. And there are plenty more committees aside from these that you can participate in outside of JTC1 within ISO, IEC, CEN, and CENELEC. As a delegate, you would also represent the position. The national position is the market's position. Just to emphasize again, ILNAS is a gateway, a facilitator, but you, the market, are in command of the voice. And so, as such, you would participate also in the visibility of Luxembourg in a major international and European context. And I would also like to stress that this addresses companies of all sizes. You do not need to be a large company to have a standardization need, and you do not need to be a large company to have your voice heard in a committee. Finally, you can gain an education in standardization. We can support you in understanding how the system works, how to sift through the SDO platforms, which are not always easy, and all the documents that are there, and overall what it means to be a delegate. ILNAS has also other forays into research and education, such as the recently launched MTech Master on Technical Standardization, Smart ICT, and Business Innovation, or the ILNAS UL Research Program, which should be starting soon. So don't hesitate to get in touch. We are here to support you. You can contact any one of ANEC's project officers, even if it's just to get an information session on what it means, how the system works, how it can benefit you. We would be very happy to show you how to start or to further enhance your journey in ICT technical standardization. And with that, I thank you for your attention.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jean, and thank you for presenting about ILNAS with us this morning. One of the aspects I really liked about it was how you mentioned the importance on the U when it comes to ILNAS. And with digital society, I think the only way these things can prosper, where we can learn and thrive, is when the market is looking at these opportunities here presented by Jean and by the other speakers who we'll hear about later today. So thank you again. Our next speaker is joining us from France. Clotilde Cochinaire is the IoT Solutions and Smart Territories expert for Western Europe at Huawei Technologies. Clotilde aims at building strategies, solutions, and partnerships for smart territories and smart buildings in both the public and private sector. As she couldn't be present with us today, we'll discover her insights on smart cities for a more sustainable future via video. So now let's watch Clotilde's presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Smart City for a Sustainable Future. I am Clotilde Cochinaire, Smart City and IoT Solution Expert at Huawei Technologies for Western Europe. The first time I heard about Smart City, it was in 2005. Then we were talking about connected city. Secondly, Smart Planet was a hot topic in 2010. And nothing had happened until the past few years. One of the main reasons was that the connectivity wasn't ready. Now we have 3G, 4G, and 5G, of course, and without the use of ICT technologies, it is completely impossible to build a smart and sustainable city. My role at Huawei is to build solutions and strategies in smart cities, smart territory, and smart building. So, to go deeper in the sustainable future with smart city, let's see the global impact of smart cities and sustainability. Why are countries so focused on smart and sustainable city? Besides the readiness of ICT, another driving force for smart city is the urbanization. Half the world's population lives in a city, with an increase from 30% in the 50 years ago. The increase of population from 7 billion to 9 billion in 2050. And when everyone is moving into a city, issues starting to rise, like traffic jam, food safety, energy management, population, smart healthcare, smart education, and so on. But to understand it, let's focus on Sustainable Development Goals. According to Sustainable Development Goals, many countries, like China with a 5-year plan, like Africa with the Smart Africa Alliance, like UK with a digital economy strategy, and like Canada, they have defined and implementing their strategy in building a smart city as part of a sustainable development of a digital economy. Having said that, it means that most of cities only have 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in Asia of experience in understanding deeply smart city. And lack of experience in building a smart city will lead to many problems arising from unsustainability for future operations and also disappointment from unexpected end results. But Smart City Project is a systematical process of re-engineering of society operations. And when it started, there is no end to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go make a worldwide sustainable cities tour with me with Huawei. Huawei uses cloud computing, IoT, artificial intelligence, 5G, working on 6G, and other emerging ICT technologies to build a unified IoT platform, communication platform, cloud data center, and smart command center, forming a city nervous system. And then, as a result, the smart cities become more sustainable and scalable. In particular, Huawei's city nervous system consists of the central nervous system, which is the brain, and the peripheral nervous system. The former includes the city operations center and cloud data center, where the decision is made. And the latter contains city, IoT, communications, and other networks. But let us elaborate on this. The city central nervous system, namely the brain, consists of a cloud data center and city operations center. The cloud data center, it aggregates and processes data, including resident data, governmental data, and enterprise data. By combining those data with policies, events, and also indicators, the operations center enables comprehensive city management, emergency command, and scientific decision making. The city communication network and IoT different networks from the peripheral nervous system. Based on the system, city managers can know precisely the city operating status and deal with issues, see the alerts, take the actions, and then prevent for further issues. But let's be very precise on it and start with an example. An example like Gaoking. This was really a success project in China. In this context, we need to focus on smart Gaoking to achieve comprehensive digital transformation of Gaoting County. The ultimate goal is to set up a benchmark for smart cities in counties in China. To achieve this goal, Huawei has reached a consensus with Gaoking County based on the following 2 points. Firstly, it's a cross-domain convergence. Many cities in China are in a full swing in smart city construction. However, most cities are still segmented. Smart Gaoking must be a comprehensive smart city that covers all the aspects of city production and life, which is a huge challenge. The second point is standards. Only after a series of standards such as construction, operation, insurance, industry standards of smart city, then we can copy the success of smart Gaoking to other places. Based on these 2 points, we propose the Smart Gaoking project and solution. Based on the service requirements for smart cities, the solutions is divided into 3 categories: a better governance, a well-being and benefiting from people, and the promotion of different competitions between enterprise. The starting point of platform construction is to integrate all data, maps, video, and IoT information to provide services and capability support for a series of upper layer smart applications. For example, smart city management and smart environmental protection, they require services such as data, video, and maps. And in this way, the value of the platform can be fully used. So what we see is that we coordinate fertile soil with cloud, AI, geographical information system, command, big data to elaborate new use cases, including sustainable environments, smart education, and much more. The architecture is a scalable one and self-evolving. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to focus on another project which was a success with Huawei in China, which is Weifeng. More than 40,000 streetlights in Weifeng have been rebuilt based on NB-IoT technology. As a result, the operation and maintenance efficiency is improved by 45%. The lighting rate is increased by 25%, and the annual electricity consumption has been decreased by 6.8 million kWh. So it is a huge impact of Weifeng County on sustainability in Weifeng. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to come back to Europe. Let's make a tour on European sustainable cities with Huawei. Huawei has huge success in Europe. I would like to focus today only on 3 projects. The first one is Amsterdam. We built this project with our partner, which is Géodon. Géodon is making the digital twin, and we are the foundation of the project. The project is based around 3 thematics. The first one is energy monitoring and environment monitoring. The second one is mobility, and the third one is well-being. Therefore, on an open data platform, data are collected and visualized in order to have a real-time view on what's happening in Amsterdam, and it can be treated in a back office to prevent any damage or issue, and next elaborate new future use cases. What you see on this screen is the traffic visualization with, at the right, the public transport, and at the left, the different railway monitoring. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Duisburg in Germany. Duisburg was a city left behind the industrial era. Previous heavy industry such as coal mining and processing was the reason for Duisburg to be successful. The changes in the last 50 years brought poverty, and then that causes the city to reinvent itself. The solution was really in a smart city project based on the cloud platform. Huawei brings the cloud platform, but also the Wi-Fi, the fiber, and other connectivities. It provides a foundation for growth, for property, and equality. Then, private sector clients provide revenues for public sector services. The smart city services are integrated and share data, and the economic stimulation of local partners and ecosystem has started. It was a real success for Duisburg. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I would like to share with you a project in France. Let's go to Confluence Housing in Lyon. We are working on this project with our partner Ubians, dedicated to smart building and dedicated to digital twin of smart building. To understanding, I would like just to give you a few insights on that. We are spending more than 80% of our time directly inside the building. So it means we can't change the model of smart city if we don't change the model of smart building. To do that, we need really to understand what are the issues in the building. Of course, a lot of energy loss, a lot of energy consumption issues, but also operations issues and operations costs inside a building. So in order to solve that, with Ubiant, which is our partner, we built a digital twin from the sensor, which is batteryless and wireless, up to the hypervisor to see exactly in 3D, in real time and bidirectional, what are the events and the operations directly inside the building. So it is really powerful. This is exactly the solution that we put in place in the Confluence Project. The Confluence Project belongs to Smarter Together program. We have a very huge objective in this program. We need to put the Confluence Housing in compliance with European Directive based on BACS, which is a Building Automation Control System. That is to say, to manage really precisely and digitally each energy event directly inside the building. But we have so huge objectives on energy consumption reductions, which are 40% in 2030 and 60% in 2050. This is a huge project. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you understand that we can't speak about smart city if we don't speak about smart building. And finally, to be really successful, not only a smart city project needs to be user-centric, ecosystem-centric, and environment-centric, but it needs also to englobe all the power of ecosystem, fundings, answering to present and latent needs, and be deployed by the strong execution team. It is the only way to have a common shared value on a sustainable project. Thank you for your attention.
Great. So, Clotilde, if you're watching, thank you for the very interesting presentation. It's exciting to see what may happen soon in Luxembourg, and it's awesome to see what's happening in Asia and their neighbors in France and Germany with this kind of technology. So right now, we will leave Europe for a presentation live from Dubai. We are pleased to count on the participation of Dr. Patrick Noack. He is the Executive Director of the Dubai Future Foundation. Prior to this role, he was a policy advisor at the Royal Society, where he led on emerging technologies and foresight. He was responsible for a landmark report on neural interface technologies, one which is called iHuman, which aimed at exploring the forthcoming scientific opportunities and the social and policy implications. Before that, he developed scenarios on complex issues with several United Nations specialized agencies and in the private sector. For today's digital summit, he will share his ambitions with the Dubai Future Foundation. So now, let's connect with Patrick.
So it's great to be with you. Thank you for that introduction, Christopher. Just one thing by way of correction. I'm not the executive director of the Dubai Future Foundation as a whole. I'm the director of future foresight and imagination within the Dubai Future Foundation. Minor point, but I'll get to that in a moment. So I just want to spend the next few moments on basically making the case that Dubai and Dubai Future Foundation has a big part in the concept, that Dubai really is a lab. It's a lab to get the city and the world more broadly onto a firm footing to the future. Let me see if I can scroll through some of the slides. A handful of notions before we start about Dubai Future Foundation, because though I presume that a lot of people online or in real life will be familiar with Dubai, there may be some question about Dubai Future Foundation. So we're a government entity and of course based in Dubai. And what we do is to imagine and design Dubai's future. And we do that in collaboration with public and private sector partners. We aim quite ambitiously to make Dubai the most future ready and forward looking city in the world. We've got 4 arms. I lead, as I say, the Future Foresight Research and Imagination arm, which is the area to the left about Imagine. Then there's the museum of which you see the logo on the far left. We also have an accelerator, we have an academy. We structure all of the work of the foundation around 3 main pillars. Basically saying that the future belongs to those who can imagine it, design the future, and then execute it. So we've got the Museum of the Future, which is going to open later this year. We have the research arm, which is about conducting the research, managing Dubai Future Councils, and we have the World Economic Forum Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which also sits here. We have a range of accelerators, incubators, SME ways of engaging with them. We have a robotics lab and we have design labs, as well as a regulations lab, and I'll get back to that in a few moments. They will fall under the design heading. And then finally, we execute some of the work that we do through the Executive Council and through the government of Dubai, and I come back to that later as well. So this is just by way of the way Dubai Future Foundation is structured. Of course, Dubai as a whole is really about the future. It's become synonymous with future of travel, of connectivity. We've got the expo starting in a couple of weeks' time, the future of technology, mobility, and as a whole, really a city of the future. So Dubai really is a series of global and regional hubs, airport, ports, culture, startups, and a lot more. But it's not something that has happened overnight. This has happened, though, in 50 years, so it's quite an amazing achievement looking at the history of Dubai. So the city of Dubai and the country, the UAE, have transformed from being predominantly based on pearl trade to becoming a global destination, something that people refer to quite frequently as from pearls to malls. This transition, as I say, has not happened overnight, nor has it happened by accident, but it's really been by design and I would say by astute risk-taking. At that time, back in the 1950s, up to the 1970s, which is when the UAE came together as a country, it's been a matter of anticipating change and really technological change with a view of being at the very forefront. So this has led to a number of regional headquarters of key organizations and companies being housed here in Dubai. A couple of important milestones, recent milestones in the history of the country. One is in 2015, an open data law was passed, and that law regulates the use and sharing of what we call Dubai data. That is any of the data related to the Emirate of Dubai and is made available to made available by data providers. This has led to the establishment of a Dubai government entity called Smart Dubai, which has now been reshaped and reformed into Dubai Data. But Smart Dubai originally was the custodian of the open data law and really the custodian of the flow of data between various entities and users of those data. Another landmark aspect of the way Dubai is moving and is experimenting is 3D printing. So here, the photograph here, the white low-rise buildings here are 3D printed offices, and they are now home to the Dubai Future Academy, which is also part of the Dubai Future Foundation, and was awarded I think late last year, a Guinness World Record Award for being the first 3D printed house or 3D printed commercial building. But that's really on the back of the 2016 3D printing strategy and then the 2020 3D Printing Alliance. I think it's worth just reflecting briefly on the fact that we had a strategy at first, but in order for that to come into its own and to develop on the expectations of the strategy, that Printing Alliance was developed so that Dubai could become a leading hub for 3D printing by creating a network of supplies and suppliers, products and services in many sectors to achieve a high degree of self-sufficiency. So really, this is something that was and still is of high priority to Dubai going forward. And of course, there are the driverless taxis. A few announcements have been made in the past, but RTA, the Roads and Transport Authority here in Dubai, has announced that by 2023, there will be fully autonomous driverless taxis on the roads of Dubai. So let me just quickly return to the concept that Dubai is a lab. Dubai has, to an extent, a built-in provision to experiment. We have a thing called RegLab, so Regulations Lab. It's a federal facility that allows for sandbox testing of new solutions. So it's not just, how can we implement, how can we roll out, how can we make best use of an emerging technology, but really it asks the question from the other side as well. So what can government do to receive new technologies and also to be resilient and proactive with new technologies? So this RegLab is a good two-way house, two-way street for new technologies to be experimented with and for government to experiment with its own regulations. For example, one of the projects that we have run recently through this RegLab is the tokenization of digital assets, which is a piece of work that we did with the World Economic Forum Center that we run here. Another really interesting example, which is quite unique here, is this place here, which is called Dubai Silicon Oasis, very aptly called Silicon Oasis. It's a highly digitized mixed-use space where testing of new technologies in real life physical locations is possible. So it is mixed use. So that means you've got both companies, startups, and established corporations, as well as government entities, but also you've got housing and schooling and shops and retail. And within this space, you're able to test any physical hardware that you want to see how it behaves in this context. So if you're keen to find out how your drone delivery or your autonomous vehicle interacts and deals with school kids coming out of classes, and this is the place to do it. You can apply for a license and ensure that the technology to be tested is safe, and it can be tested in these real life situations. So colleagues here at Dubai Future Foundation are testing robots for first and last mile deliveries, as well as drone deliveries. And of course, we live in a highly digitized environment, with ultimately the aim being to benefit residents and service providers. Most resident services are available online. This is true for services for the Emirate of Dubai. Numerous services are available across Emirates and federally too. E-government is definitely an emerging reality for residents and organizations here alike. I don't think we are as digitized as, for example, a country like Estonia, but we are certainly very close to that. If you go onto our website, you'll find a relatively recent edition, which is this Dubai Future Map, which is basically turning the city of Dubai into a global testbed, which reflects the kinds of projects that we've done here by turning Dubai into a testbed for emerging technologies. And so this map here shows you the location of where the foundation is promoting the acceleration of new technologies, improved processes, and disruptive approaches. So, for example, you can link into this and identify that, for example, we've been working with Dubai Police to help them allocate more of their procedural and administrative tasks to smart solutions that use artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. Or again, we have some surgical navigation systems that assist in brain and spinal surgeries by increasing the accuracy and minimizing errors, as well as accelerating recovery of patients. So this map is quite a nice little display of some of the projects that we've helped accelerate, that we've brought off the ground, and that we are chaperoning through the system, which have very real life and local applications. One thing that might be quite interesting to some of the people in the room or more widely is that Dubai has taken the view that coding is the language of the future. And as such, in partnership with others, we have run the 1 Million Arab Coders Initiative, which has been the largest educational initiative of its kind in the region. And by April 2021, we have managed to surpass our target to educate more than 1 million Arab coders in the programs. And so we're going to have a big celebration later in the year, but I think it's quite a significant milestone to bring in a population of, or a number of populations across the world that have, I think to an extent, been excluded from some of the mainstream coding activities, which were based on English. And so here, this is really for the Arabic speaking world and the Arabic world as a whole. I know I've spoken at length about some of the big achievements that we have seen here in Dubai and that we can report as Dubai Future Foundation. But we're also quite clear that achieving the future and reaching for the future is very much a journey, it's not a destination. And so one of the roles that we have at Dubai Future Foundation is to examine how well we are doing across some of the key priority areas. And so a few months ago, I think 2 or 3 months ago now, we've published this report here on the new data economy, which was aimed to assess the extent to which we're able to share data, the extent to which that data is being made available, and the extent to which that data is being used and monetized. And we've identified some important gaps. So while we're not a watchdog, we are keenly following how well we are doing on a number of the metrics that we have set ourselves. And so we are making recommendations in this report, which may be helpful to other countries and cities around the world, to ensure that the progress in terms of digitization, the progress in terms of being open data or shared data-based economies. So what are the hurdles that we need to address, and what can we do in order to be even more successful and even more forward-looking? So I thought I'd stop right here and take any questions if there are any. And this was really intended to be a short tour of what Dubai Future Foundation does and how Dubai is positioning itself and the kind of work it has done to be among the most digitized and forward-looking and future-facing cities in the world.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, so we have some questions already. One of them is one that when we were speaking earlier the other day, is that you mentioned about the COVID response to when it comes to the vaccines and the testing, and how tremendous of a reaction that Dubai had made given the pandemic. So I wanted to know if you could speak a little bit more about this.
Yes, sure. I think it was really quite interesting because I moved to Dubai literally 4 weeks before we went into lockdown here. So it was quite an unusual time for everyone, but for us having lived through this here, particularly so. What's really striking is the extent of pragmatism and determination with which the pandemic has been dealt with. And so this is from the point of view of testing, of disinfection around the city, and also from the point of view of vaccinating and confirming the status of vaccination or testing on mobile apps. So I'll give an example. Back in March, when the first lockdowns were implemented here, the city was in total shutdown for 2 weeks. And at night, from 10 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning, the city was disinfected. All the roads were disinfected, and the city, the Dubai municipality deployed drones to disinfect some of the areas. So we've used technology extensively from that point of view. Testing was rolled out incredibly quickly and widely, and so that we very quickly became, I think, the most tested nation on earth, with hundreds of thousands of tests being carried out on a daily basis for a population of just under 10 million. And then equally with vaccination, we had access to the Sinopharm vaccine as early, so this was wholesale access as early as December 2020, with clinical trials being carried out much before that, and many people having access as early as September, October 2020. That was followed very quickly with basically all of the other vaccines. But apps also were, I think, used to great effect, because one of the things that you may not be aware of is that there's a border that was established between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, where Abu Dhabi required a PCR test every, I think, 48 hours at the time it was. And that status was verified through the use of an app. And that is a nationwide app that now contains all of the information about recent PCR or lateral flow tests, and also the status of the vaccination. So I think they were really quick at implementing universal and free vaccination, universal and almost free testing in some areas, and very widespread use of apps for verification purposes.
Thanks, Patrick. And another question, when it comes to Dubai and the Dubai Future Foundation, how do they collaborate with countries in Asia, in Western Europe, America, even here in Luxembourg? What's the situation with this kind of collaboration?
We collaborate, so I think the key word is pragmatism. So we collaborate happily with a number of countries and of organizations. And in fact, I have someone who's contacted me because an MOU has been signed with, I don't want to get the name wrong, but with one of the organizations in Luxembourg, and we'll be speaking in a couple of days' time. We partner very happily with universities, with organizations from around the world, and it's really to ensure that there is mutual learning, a mutual exchange of knowledge and information. It's absolutely critical for us to be on top of the latest knowledge and the latest trends. We have very, very frequently delegations from a number of countries coming to visit us. We invite startups and companies to challenges to Dubai. So for example, we have, I think, an upcoming education challenge. I think it's Smart Education Challenge. And so for that, a number of startups and companies will be invited to join us in Dubai for 8 weeks to address a very specific challenge. And on the back of that, usually contracts and agreements are signed going forward with those companies in Dubai. So we are very, very open-minded and very open-armed as well to welcoming organizations and countries to be collaborating with us. And one of the programs we have as well is Country in Residence. So we had Italy in residence a few months ago, where companies from that country came to collaborate with entities and companies here in Dubai, which is a great way to understand the regulatory environment, to understand the ecosystem, and how to best adapt practices and products to the local needs.
Thanks, Patrick. I have another question, but does anyone here in the audience have any questions that they would like to ask Patrick? I can relay it after I hear it. No one? All right. I'll go to my last question, Patrick, and it goes into, so as you mentioned, the Dubai is pretty much it has an area for lab testing for different companies, no matter the industry. And I'd like to know how, not how easy, but how would a company that is, let's say, relocating to Dubai and they want to get out lab testing, how would they do so, and how, I guess, easy would it be for them to be embraced by the foundation and the city?
So I think, look, I've not done it myself, but we interact with a number of companies, and we as an entity do testing with, for example, Dubai Silicon Oasis. Like in any country, if you come as a foreign company or as a foreign entity, you'll need to obtain an authorization to carry out the work, and these permits depend on the specific sector and depend on the kind of company setting up and the purpose that the company has, et cetera, et cetera. But once these trade licenses are granted, you're free to operate here. With, for example, testing at Silicon Oasis, it really is a matter of getting in touch with that authority. They call it Dubai Silicon Oasis Authority, and they're a free zone, which effectively means that they're an offshore authority. Even though they sit right in the middle of Dubai, they have their own rules and regulations and legal systems, and they will have specific requirements for you to test a product or a service or a new technology. And those are then agreements that can be stipulated with the free zone, and it's really on a case-by-case basis. We have a number of RTI, so research transfer organizations that can assist with that, both here and in the other Emirates. And I think for anyone who's wishing to see whether Dubai or the UAE is a destination for a startup or for testing new technologies, I would say that it's very much an open space for that. And we're talking to a number of countries who are coming, not least because of Expo, but who are coming on a regular basis to make use of the relative flexibility of the regulatory and policy environment that we find here. And I think just as a last word, I've mentioned once or twice, Expo is starting in 2 weeks' time, which is a pretty big deal. But I think it's also a massive opportunity for people to come here and meet others from other countries. We, as I said, have regular delegations to Dubai Future Foundation. And I think the more we have, the more we're going to seek to make these delegations come together and provide some kind of a matchmaking opportunity, because it's quite a unique moment for us in Dubai at this point in time. And I think it's worth for people and for companies and for institutions to come and try to see whether there's something in Dubai for them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Patrick. I think we should give a round of applause.
Thank you so much for having me. I wish I could be there in person.
Okay, so now the next presentation is offered in collaboration with the Luxembourg Trade and Investments Offices. They connect with entrepreneurs worldwide, and I'm very pleased to present on stage Mr. Nelson Pinto, who is in charge of digital technologies and startup at the Ministry of the Economy, Luxembourg. Please welcome Nelson.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Luxembourg Trade Investment Office session, Connecting with Startups Worldwide. The Luxembourg Trade Investment Offices, or LTIOs, are a network of 9 offices spread all over the world in different cities such as New York, Shanghai, San Francisco, or Tokyo. One of the main objectives of the LTIOs is to promote Luxembourg in order to attract foreign companies and investment to Luxembourg. On the other hand, they can also help and facilitate access to international markets for Luxembourg-based companies. For this session, 3 startups active in the digital society / smart city sector and that are interested in coming to Luxembourg have been selected from the LTIO network all around the globe. Each of the 3 startups will have 5 minutes to present their company and their solution. The first company is Hackerus from Japan, developing an AI engine that provides data analytics solution. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and thank you again for the introduction. My name is Shiho Tanahashi, and today I would like to talk about how we can achieve higher productivity with the power of AI without the hustle and cost of dealing with big data. We are a Japanese startup called Hackers, and we specialize in providing big insights from small data through AI-powered image and time series data analysis. And we supply AI solutions to customers in medical, drug discovery, manufacturing, and also space industries. We've been active since 2014, and we have just finished the Series B funding round. And we're currently trying to bring these success stories that we have accumulated within Japan to customers in Europe as we rapidly expand. What makes us different from all the other AI companies in the world is the technology that we have called sparse modeling. This unique technology allows us to make explainable and extremely energy efficient AI models with much less training data required compared to the current industry standard called deep learning. With this novel AI technology, our mission is to free humans from labor-intensive, repetitive, or dangerous tasks, such as visual inspections, infrastructure maintenance, or experiments in labs and medical diagnosis. This will allow us to increase overall productivity by eliminating these tasks that can be automated by machineries and AI. We also make it possible to create and run AI systems without the trouble and cost, and also the energy consumption of dealing with big data. And that's what makes us different. To sum up, Hackers makes automation in various industries possible with a unique technology called sparse modeling. We are proud suppliers to major companies in Japan, such as Mitsubishi Electric or Osaka Gas, but also we have business with very established European companies such as Deutsche Bahn and Bayer. And we are now ready to really enter the international market with these use cases and success stories with these companies. If you would like to discuss how we can help with your automation needs, or discuss more about what we can do, or just simply to learn more, please send me an email or contact us at hackers.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Now from Japan to Chile, the next company is Serland Data Analysis, developing an agricultural management software for data analysis, and which will be presented by Paulette Amthauer. Can you hear us? Hello, can you hear us?
Hi.
Okay, great. We can hear you, cannot see you.
Perfect.
You have 5 minutes for your pitch.
Okay.
Still there?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready to present?
Yes, I'm ready.
We can see your screen.
Sorry?
Yes, you can go.
Okay, start.
Yes, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Paulette Amthauer. I'm from Chile, from the south of Chile, founder last year of an Ict startup and called Cellular Data Analysis. When we began to advise different farmers, we identified the big problem of catching and capturing and processing the data to obtain the indicators to improve business decision making. That's why we decided to implement digital transformation by developing a suite platform based on machine learning and business intelligence called Merlin, which helps improve this business decision and thus we more efficient with decision making. Merlin captures data from different sources, Excel, other system and other platforms, processes it in one place to deliver the information in a custom dashboard, which is in the real time and easy to process. With this, we improve data entry, figures, errors, and more time able for analyze and the best of all from one place. So this is it, that it's what Serlan does to process the data of the farmers to they can access in just one place and not have a lot of users named to access and to watch only and specify one information. So in Merlin, they can saw all the results just in one place to take the best decision in the business and to have more improved results. That's it.
Thank you very much for the pitch. Going on to the third and final presentation, which comes from India, GingerMind.ai, developing a solution to help the blind and visually impaired, and which will be presented by the co-founder and CEO, Gaurav Mittal, who came to Luxembourg. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Pinto, and thank you, Luxembourg Minister of Economy, for having us here. I am Gaurav Mittal, one of the co-founders of GingerMind.ai, where we use AI to help people with vision impairment be more independent in daily tasks. Back in 2016, with a mindset to leverage the best of the available technologies possible with mankind for the greater good, for people with special needs. In 2016, we launched our first app called the ID app, and within a few months, we got a couple of thousands of users globally. This app would use accessibility features in a smartphone to help people with vision impairment do a few things, like identify any kind of written text in 50+ languages in front of them, identify objects in front of them, as well as help them in navigation, all by using audio feedback. In 2019, we came to Barcelona and started working with the City Council in Spain to help citizens with vision impairment walk outdoors with greater ease just by using computer vision and AI. We would train the images and videos on our cloud for our AI-based model, and again, just by using a smartphone without any use of a white cane or a white stick, which is being used by visually impaired globally. A person who has zero vision can walk in a safer path, identifying the right navigation directions, left, right, or straight, as well as the obstacles. Since our inception, we have impacted about 70,000 users in 160 countries globally, and now we are here in Luxembourg. Of course, no discussion is fruitful these days without discussing the impact of pandemic. And just like with every other population, pandemic has impacted people with special needs in a very big way. And the biggest risk these days is reduced focus on people with special needs And I use this podium here to highlight the needs as well as the opportunities in this space. The biggest opportunity these days is there is a very great adoption of technology, very fast pace everywhere, and using this space, we can definitely push a lot of interesting technologies in this space, the space of people with disabilities, for greater and wider option. And for this, we definitely need a lot of role of many actors, including government, public players, and private players. I am Gaurav from GingerMind.ai. Please do reach out to us in case you feel you have some pointers, in case you feel some person with special needs or vision impairment around you who would need our products, or you would like to contribute in any possible way. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Three very interesting presentation of three very different solutions. I would say that's it for the pitches and the LTO session. Please do not hesitate to get in contact with the companies here at ICT Spring or via LinkedIn if you wish to have additional information. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's now move on to our next presenter. He is a sought-after keynote speaker and a best-selling writer in artificial intelligence. He focuses on the medium and long-term impact of AI on our societies and our economies. He has 2 nonfiction books. One's entitled Surviving AI, which is about strong AI and superintelligence, and the second is The Economic Singularity, about the prospect of widespread technological unemployment. He's also written Pandora's Brain and Pandora's Oracle, a pair of techno-thrillers, sounds very interesting, about the first superintelligence, and he is a regular contributor to Forbes. Ladies and gentlemen, let's connect to Calum Chace for a question that we all want the answer to, which is, how can digital transformation thrive? Calum, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody, and congratulations. You have all chosen to be born at the best time in all of human history so far. So congratulations, well done, great choice, give yourself a pat on the back. This is also the most interesting and the most important time in human history so far. Now here's proof that this is the best time in human history so far. This is a chart of human welfare since the birth of Christ, measured by GDP, a rough and ready measure, but fair enough. And as you can see, what it shows is exponential improvement. Until really quite recently, absolutely nothing happened to GDP. It didn't move. And then the Industrial Revolution happened and things got very busy. And the same is true of pretty much any other metric of human welfare. And this exponential growth in human welfare is driven by our technologies. And of course, our most powerful technologies are digital and increasingly the pointy end of digital technology, artificial intelligence. So in the next 18.5 minutes, I'm going to try and do 3 things. First, I'm going to talk about where we are today with our digital technologies and AI and how we got there. And second, I'm going to offer some suggestions about where this is going to lead in the next decade and beyond. Third, I'm going to suggest some ways that you can benefit, some strategies and tactics that you can adopt to benefit from this digital transformation. So let's kick off with part 1, and let's start with a surprisingly difficult question. What is AI? It's obviously 2 words, artificial and intelligence, and the first word, artificial, is quite easy. It's an entity which is developed by humans or possibly by aliens, but not by God or by evolution. Intelligence is harder, but there is a 4-word definition which I think does the trick. Goal-oriented adaptive behavior. So an artificial intelligence is an entity created by humans which learns as it pursues a goal and adapts its behavior accordingly. Now, artificial intelligence officially got started as a science back in 1956, 65 years ago, at the Dartmouth Conference in New Hampshire. And for most of its history, it's done interesting, sometimes impressive things, but it hasn't made money. Then in 2012, something really interesting happened. There was a big bang in AI when a researcher called Jeff Hinton managed to get a branch of statistics called machine learning to work in AI. Machine learning is a term coined 3 years after the Dartmouth Conference in 1959 to mean algorithms which use data, lots and lots of data, to create mathematical models which make decisions or predictions without being explicitly programmed to do so. And the type of machine learning, the subset of machine learning that Jeff Hinton introduced was deep learning. Deep learning operates in layers. Each layer processes some data and passes it up to the next layer. And as you go higher and higher, you get higher level features extracted from the data. Now, it's a simplification to say that the way deep learning works is the same as the human brain works, but it's not a simplification to say that machines can now learn and they can be creative. Most people probably became aware of deep learning and the Big Bang in AI in 2016, when a machine built by DeepMind, which is owned by Google, called AlphaGo, beat the world's best player of Go. And Go is our most complicated board game by a long way. And one of the many things that did was to wake China up. China, the government and its companies, decided to become the world leader in AI, and they're not doing too badly. So since then, AI has started to make money. But actually 3 years after the triumph in Go, a system in Singapore built an IKEA chair. It did it in 9 minutes, and it didn't swear once. Now, I think that probably means we can all agree it's going to be game over for the humans. Now, it's important to say that what we have at the moment is not artificial general intelligence. It is not superintelligence. We have narrow AIs, which are superhuman in some respects, but useless in every other respect. However, they are very capable. Thanks to deep learning, machines can now recognize faces better than you can. They can recognize speech as well as you can. And they're catching up fast in natural language processing, which is the business of ingesting information in natural language, processing it, and then giving back a result, again, in natural language. All of this is possible because of the exponential improvement in the power of our technology. And as an example of that, you've probably heard that the smartphone in your pocket has more compute power than NASA had when they sent Neil Armstrong to the moon in 1969. And that's true, but it's out of date. A good toaster now has more compute power than NASA had in 1969. I don't know about you, but for me, that means Neil Armstrong was unbelievably brave. I would not go into space relying on the intelligence of a toaster. So that's where we are with digital transformation and AI and how we got there. What does it mean in the future? The exponential growth in the power of our technology is not slowing, it's continuing. And in the next decade, which I think is going to be the roaring 20s, it's going to be a very impressive decade. Two of the things we're going to see are talking machines and talking cars. Let's start with the talking machines. At the moment, Siri and its friends, Alexa and Cortana and Google Assistant, they can answer a question, but they're pretty dumb. You can't have a conversation with them. By the end of this decade, Siri is going to be smart. In fact, Siri is going to be sexy. And this is Siri being sexy. You will have conversations with your digital assistant. You'll send it off into the internet to do errands for you. Now, we don't know exactly when this is going to happen, and we don't know when machines that drive are going to happen either. There's been a lot of over-optimistic forecasts, and I've been guilty of some of them. Engineers have a saying that in any big project, the first 99% of the project takes the first 99% of the time available. The final 1% of the project takes the second 99% of the time. But make no mistake, self-driving cars are coming. Waymo, which is a spin-off out of Google, has a pilot taxi service in Phoenix, Arizona, carrying members of the public around, and there is no driver, no safety engineer in the front. There is no human in the front. They're just launching a follow-up in San Francisco. At the moment, there are safety drivers, but that will be relieved. As well as machines that talk and machines that drive, during the roaring 20s, we're going to see compelling, increasingly compelling virtual reality, augmented reality, the Internet of Things, and digital twins. But it won't stop there. The exponential growth will continue. The exponential growth is described as Moore's law. This is the phenomenon first noticed in 1965 by Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel. And it means that computers get twice as powerful every 18 months. You will have heard that Moore's law is dead or it's dying, but it's not true. It's evolving, it's changing, and indeed it always has. There is plenty more. Now, that means we will see this. Again, an exponential curve. This shows that in 10 years' time, if the exponential growth in the power of computers continues, the machines we have will be 128 times as powerful as the machines we have today. In 20 years' time, they'll be 8,000 times as powerful. In 30 years' time, they'll be 1 million times as powerful. That is impressive. Now, of course, exponential curves don't go on forever. As the saying goes, the trend is your friend until the bend at the end. But there's plenty of reason to think this one will carry on and we will see this growth. And I think that means that in during the rest of this century, we will see two singularities. A singularity is a term borrowed from maths and physics. And in human societies and human economies, it means a point of complete change, a bigger change than a revolution, bigger change than transformation. The first of these two singularities is the economic singularity, which is the point when machines become so powerful, so capable, that they can do almost any job that humans could do. Now, a lot of people think this will never happen, but they say that automation doesn't cause unemployment, lasting widespread unemployment, it creates wealth. And that's partly true, but it's only partly true. In America, in 1915, there were 21.5 million horses. It turns out that 1915 was peak horse. The population of horses in America today is 2 million. So if you excuse the pun, that is unbridled technological unemployment. This will throw many challenges at us, but I think we have to face up to it. I think we have to take it seriously. And failing to do so is dangerously complacent. It's also pessimistic. A world in which machines do all the jobs could be a world in which humans do whatever we want to do. We learn, we play, we have fun, we socialize. There will be many challenges. I think we're going to have to evolve the economy of abundance, also known as the Star Trek economy, which I call fully automated luxury capitalism, which means we bring the price of all the goods and services that you need for a very good standard of living close to zero. This isn't straightforward. There's a lot to think about, and I've written about it at length in this book. If we look 2 or 3 generations ahead, I think we are likely to see the second singularity, which I describe in this book, which is the arrival of superintelligence, artificial general intelligence, soon superintelligence, and this is often known as the technological singularity. Now, it's controversial, this idea, and that controversy is exemplified in the comments of these 2 leading AI researchers. Andrew Yang on the left, sorry, Andrew Ng, not Andrew Yang, on the left says that worrying about superintelligence is like worrying about overcrowding on Mars. Stuart Russell on the right says that not worrying about superintelligence, but carrying on creating more and more capable AIs is like going to Mars without thinking about what you're going to breathe when you get there. It's absolutely fine to be skeptical about the arrival anytime soon of superintelligence. But bear this in mind, the 2 most impressive and powerful AI labs in the world, DeepMind in London and OpenAI in San Francisco, are both explicitly pursuing the goal of AGI, and they both think they will achieve it this century. We don't know how long superintelligence will take to arrive, even if it does arrive, but we've got quite a few decades to make sure that we get the good outcomes and not the possible bad outcomes. DeepMind has this wonderful 2-step mission statement for itself and for humanity. 1, solve intelligence, create superintelligence. 2, use that to solve everything else. And they really mean everything else. Poverty, war, even death. So we've looked at where we are in the digital transformation and how we got here. We've looked at where it might take us. What about how we can adapt, how we can benefit from this amazing set of changes? And change is really the keynote. Change is what this is all about. And I've looked at this in two contexts. One is what companies should do, and the other is what people should do, what we should all do individually. What companies should do, I think, is become able, which means automated, business model agnostic, lateral thinking, and empowering. Automating is a matter of survival in a competitive market. If your competitors automate and you don't, your cost base is uneconomic. And in most businesses, there are people doing routine, boring work, which would be cheaper and better done by robots. That may sound brutal, but do we really want humans doing robot work? As customers change what they want and how they want it, as products and services change, companies need to change their business models. And sometimes they're going to need to change on a dime as the change gets faster. One of the few good things about coronavirus is it's shown us that companies can change at very short notice. If everything's changing, you don't do very well if you just carry on thinking the way you've always thought. You have to engage in what's called lateral thinking, a term invented in 1967 by the psychologist Edward de Bono. He offered a number of tools to help us do it. A nice example of lateral thinking happened a few years ago when a bus got stuck under a bridge. What on earth to do? People said, should we dismantle the bridge? Should we dismantle the bus? And a small boy who happened to be standing there said, why not just let the tires down on the bus? Finally, companies need to empower their people. In the good old bad old days, great leaders used to set the direction, lead the charge, and expect everybody to follow along enthusiastically. And of course, that doesn't work anymore. Today, with the level of change that we have, we need to harness the creativity and the innovation of all our people. And we know what that means. It's not rocket science. It means recognizing their achievements and celebrating them, accepting that people make mistakes, and that's how we learn. We know what to do, but it's often hard to do it. We have to be honest in our communications and not hide behind jargon and company speak. So that's companies. Companies need to get able. We as individuals need to get real, which means we need to become resilient, excited, agile, and lifelong learners. At a time of rapid change, life throws a lot of challenges at us. Sometimes you zig and it turns out you should have zagged. Very often this means there are opportunities, but those opportunities are not always easy to see at the time. So we have to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down, and get on with the job. We have to get excited. Now, nobody gets excited the way a toddler does. My son is 20, and like any human, he's had his share of ups and downs and triumphs and failures. But the video that makes me smile the most is when we were playing with a simple garden hose and he was just 3 years old. He was so excited. As adults, when we are excited is when we do our best work. Phoning it in never gets great results. We have to be agile. We have to respond to the changes around us. And unfortunately, there is no silver bullet. There is no simple, effective way to learn how to become agile. But probably the most important piece of advice is to cultivate the art of being a very good listener, particularly, and this is hard, to people who are not like us, people who think differently, people who look differently. And finally, we need to be lifelong learners. Now, I don't need to explain this really. If everything's changing, we need to learn new stuff. But how do you find the time to be a lifelong learner? And here I have a piece of advice which will terrify many of you. Watch a lot less TV. And yes, I mean Netflix too. One way to do this is to say that the only time you'll watch TV is when you're exercising. So I've looked at where we are in the digital transformation and how we got here, what we might see coming down the pipe, and how we can each benefit from it. And I hope I've persuaded you, at least to some extent, that this is the best, the most interesting, and the most important time in all of human history so far. Hollywood doesn't seem to agree. Hollywood gives us a lot more Star Treks than Star Wars, a lot more dystopias than utopias. And I think they're wrong. The future I foresee is much more Star Trek than Star Wars. It certainly isn't dystopia, but it's also not the opposite of dystopia, which of course is utopia. There's two problems with utopia. One is it's completely implausible. We will never get to a state of perfection. Secondly, it's boring. If you ever did get there, nothing would change. It'd be very dull. I think what we should be doing instead, what we should be pursuing, is what the great thinker Kevin Kelly called protopia. That's a world which is really, really good, but it just keeps getting better all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Calum. Again, his two nonfiction books are The Economic Singularity and Surviving AI. So the next presentation will also focus on AI and enable us to discover the gaps and perspectives of AI. This interesting topic will be addressed by Dr. Benoit Ojak, who is leading the Data Science and Analytics Unit at LIST, the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. This team of 50+ members is focused on the fair interplay between AI and people with the mission to imagine, design, implement, and assess new digital technologies having an impact on our society and on the economy. As we're eager to learn more, I'll welcome Mr. Ojak.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a really pleasure for me to be here today with you at ICT Spring. Thank you for Farvest and for inviting me. So I didn't know that there was this presentation before mine, and it's really a great, let's say, introduction, also a visionary introduction to my talk. So I will have a look to a closer future, let's say, and we'll see perhaps how they're connected together. So I'll try to address three main questions about trustworthy AI. First, why? Why do we need trustworthy AI? Second, what's that? Is it a new concept? Is it something new? And finally, what are some of the challenges? There are many. I will just talk about a few of them, but it's interesting to know that there are still many open questions in this field. So why do we need trustworthy AI? Just because we need trustworthy technologies. It's not that different from cars, batteries, vaccine, drugs. Every time we launch a new technology on the market, sooner or later we want this technology to be trustworthy. And AI will have the same question. Now that we know that AI is powerful, it's deployable, it's useful, we want this new technology to be trustworthy too. So it's not that different. Now, there's many reasons why we should aim and we should target to have this, let's say, trustworthy AI in our society. A first element is that it will be very soon imposed by the regulation. So whether or not we want it, very soon, I'm pretty sure most of you know about this upcoming AI Regulation Act. So in a couple of months, I don't know when exactly, probably next year, it will just become mandatory to have some kind of, say, trustworthiness in the systems you're deploying. That's one element. Another element is that every time you include, let's say, a technology into your processes, into your services, you want to mitigate your risk. And once again, if there's an AI component into your system, let's say a production line, you want to lower the risk as much as possible. So you want to have trust in this component. Referring to the previous talk, there are also some, let's say, concern in the society, in our society, about how and, let's say, AI may or may not influence, for instance, democracy. There's been many, let's say, reports and papers in the press about whether or not AI should or should not be a tool to promote or fight against democracy. There's a debate there, but definitely, again, we want AI to be, say, trustworthy from, let's say, this perspective. And perhaps a last point is that as a businessman, you want to be competitive. That's part of the basic rule of the business. And being trustworthy in your technology is also a very good selling argument. Very soon, too, if the AI you include into your system is not trustworthy, it might become illegal first, very soon. And secondly, you're really losing competitiveness compared to your competitors. So there are also some very business-oriented reasons to go in this direction. So there's a lot of reason to say, okay, we should go this way. So what do we mean by trustworthy AI? In fact, the EU has set up groups, high-level experts, to think about AI for a couple of years now, and they have come with some, let's say, clarification about this concept, which is quite broad, I must say. And they've identified several major features of what trustworthy AI is about. So trustworthy AI is more than privacy. Of course, privacy is part of it, but it's more than this. It's more the technical robustness. Of course, it must be robust, but it's more than this. It's more than, let's say, non-discrimination. Once again, non-discrimination is part of the whole story, but it's not everything. So as you can see, it's quite a broad set of features that the system that will soon be, let's say, put on the market should include. So another very interesting point to mention here is that the rationale of this thinking about what trustworthy AI is coming from different fields. Of course, we have people with a background in, let's say, ethics, philosophy, principle, values, and of course it plays a role. But you also have people who knows about the technology, what we can do today with the technology, what we can do today in science, in computer science. And of course, what is achievable is also, let's say, playing a big part. Just to name another example, it's now there's a consensus to say that everything we do should be somehow sustainable, green, and also those environmental footprint concern is also part of the reflection about trustworthy AI. So how much energy we consume when you deliver this kind of AI, how much time and energy it costs to build an AI model. It's something that we cannot ignore anymore. So something that I don't see so frequently, let's say, highlighted is that trustworthiness is not a static state. It's not valid forever. If I take the example or the metaphor of safety in cars, the first time let's say, a brand, Volvo, invented the 3-point safety belt, it was a revolution. Of course, now, if you only have this kind of safety measure in your car, it's definitely not a safe car. Some decades later, there have been those electronic-based, let's say, systems like the ABS. Once again, it was a revolution at that time. Now, almost every car has an ABS too. And now, as we know, there are much advanced, let's say, security systems embedded in most of the cars, and also to reach what we consider to be, let's say, trustworthy. So it's important to keep in mind that trustworthiness evolve with the state of the art, what we can do in science, in technology, but also evolve with our values, our principles. What we believe to be good, let's say, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, is probably different with what we consider to be good today, and possibly what we will consider to be good in 50 years. So not only the technology is changing, but the way we see the world is changing, the way our value, what we consider to be important or less important is changing. And the question of climate change is a very good one. We have really changed our way, our perception about how we consume, for instance. Okay, So a first challenge when we embed AI component into our systems is that for most of the users, they don't see it. And most of the time, they don't know it. So for the IT specialists in the room, there are many. You probably know the Turing Test, well known. It's just a game that was invented some decades ago just to know whether or not you're talking to a computer or not. Now, we're very close to solve the Turing Test. I mean, in many cases, it might seem like you're talking to a human, but it's a computer behind the scene. So when you have those components embedded in your car, in your shopping app, in a health tech, it's not that clear whether or not there's an AI component in it. And increasingly, there will be some AI component in it. So how much the user is aware that there is this kind of component inside the system, it's important. By the way, it's also something that the new regulation will have a look at. So explainability or understandability is also part of this trustworthy AI, let's say, feature of the systems. I will focus on this one because it's quite easy to understand with a few, let's say, examples. So let's imagine you have your car or you have your shopping app that tells you you should do that. And you say, okay, why should I follow this recommendation? And you start to talk with your system. And at some point, you may believe you're talking to a human, but it's not a human. And so a first question is, okay, perhaps the connection, the interaction, the communication, the dialogue between AI and human is one way to explain, let's say, or to raise the trust between the user, the person, and the system. So dialogue, talking, is one way, one avenue. Another approach is to say, okay, once again, you have your shopping app, your car, a device, whatever the device is, that tells you, okay, you should do that. Once again, say, why should I follow this recommendation? Tell me, explain me. And in return, you have this kind of quite complex chart that really show the internal mechanics of the systems. So, okay, you should do that because I have this kind of model, this kind of graphs with this weighting and these layers in the networks and so on. So believe me, that's true. Once again, if you're not an expert, an IT expert, a data scientist, you just don't understand at all. So a technical explanation may be another kind of way to explain how it works, but not for everyone, of course not. Now, another avenue. Again, same device, you should do that. I don't trust you, explain me why. And you got another kind of feedback, which is kind of a chart that tells you, okay, you should do that because those features, those elements that you understand or that you're supposed to understand are the most important that are leading to this decision. Okay, you're happy. I will do that. I will follow the recommendation because I've understood why, so I follow it. The problem here is that this kind of explanation is not really the internal mechanics of the model. It's a so-called surrogate model. It's a simplified explanation. It's another model on top of the real one. And this simplified model is easier to understand for you. So the question here is how close this simplified model is from the real mechanics inside the box, which is another kind of challenge. The last approach I'd like to highlight is okay, again, my shopping app, you should buy this, or you should sell this stock, whatever. Why? Tell me why. And because I have the right label. I have the right stamp on my app. It's trusted, believe me. Okay. But now the question is, I should trust not the app, but the process to give the label to the app. So you're trusting a system, people, companies, regulators, I don't know, that will give to this shopping app this, let's say, trusted label. Another kind of approach, again, to say, okay, we will reach trustworthiness by labeling certification of the service of the products. As you can see, there's many ways to explain or to convince or to reach understandability of how it works. Oh, sorry. I'm too fast. Strange. Okay. The first element is that it's multifaceted. So it's not only a question of computer science and IT. It's not only a legal question. It's not only an ethical question. It's not only a business problem. There's a lot of things that need to go together to really reach this kind of, let's say, trustworthiness. It's by nature multidisciplinary. So of course, we need to have, let's say, diversified team in which there will be lawyers, legal person that will tell you about what is the regulation, but also computer scientists that will tell you this is feasible, this is not feasible. Or there will also be perhaps some people that are more, let's say, in the society. Okay, this is what the society could accept, or this is what the people will reject, for instance. So that's kind of a, let's say, a broad question. Yeah. The good news, or the bad news, depending on where you are and when you want to go, is that it's not an option. AI embedded into the product and services will be trustworthy, or very likely those products will be just out of the market by regulation, or because competitors will just have a better product because it will be trustworthy. So it's really not an option. Yeah, so my last slide is that, as I said with the safety in cars, it's a never-ending story. So we will, in centers like mine, we will doing, let's say, research to make progress in this direction. But we know it will never end. And we will always find new way to be more trustworthy than in the past. Just like we have invented in cars new system to detect pedestrian decades after inventing the, let's say, the safety belt. And what we believe, at least, is that AI should be for people first. So it should serve the people, it should serve the humanity, and it should have a good goal for when we put AI, let's say, somewhere. Another point is that AI, it should be AI by people. And even if we automate almost everything, the decision to automate is taken by someone. So there's always a human in the loop somewhere. Of course, the final user is a human. There may be people taking decisions about which model to choose, which data to feed, how to label the data or labeling the data, which, let's say, algorithm techniques of AI to choose, which application to choose again, to include the AI, and let's say, which regulation to apply is also made by human. So it's also AI by human. We should not ignore this factor. And it should also be AI with human, in a sense that all those products and services ultimately will interact with people. And we should guarantee that this interaction makes sense, is trustworthy, is ethical, is made according to our principle and the values that we have in the society where it is deployed. This is at least our vision, and I thank you for your attention. If you want to go deeper into this, let's say, topic and discussion, you have my email address and the phone number. Don't hesitate to call me if you want to go deeper. Thank you very much.
To cope with crisis and difficulties, to be warned about threats and dangers, to evaluate and manage the risks each storm brings, to be expertly guided in an increasingly digital world, nothing is more important than a solid and trustworthy partner. With EBRC, you can face uncertainty with complete peace of mind. EBRC, your trusted ICT partner.
Startup coming to Luxembourg, it's very easy to develop your project and then afterwards go international. Go to other countries because Luxembourg is very small in its only market, but you have a very direct access to like the neighboring countries, but to every other country in Europe too.
All actors of the startup ecosystem in Luxembourg are working hand in hand in order to strive for the same goal.
The unique characteristic of the startup ecosystem is that it is a really closely knit ecosystem that fosters collaboration between the different stakeholders, private as well as public. And thanks to its small size, it really helps you to test your solutions, to get quick feedback and to have short ways to key decision makers in the market.
You can get an answer from the relevant people very quickly, which is the key element for a startup and the localization. The key things are within 10 minutes from our office, and that's great.
Luxembourg is very open to the world. It's a very international country where connections are easily made and also easily made with the other countries around Luxembourg and even beyond Europe.
I think we are getting to a point where we can aim to challenge the first in class and be actually the top competitor.
In terms of financing, we've got it pretty much all covered. From very cheap options in terms of office for free, top-notch acceleration and coaching, all the way to state-backed subsidies and grants, business angel financing, VCs, you name it.
In Luxembourg, compared to other cities around the world, we don't take equity. So if you have funding from the Ministry of Economy, they don't take equity. It's a fast funding and easy to go from here.
There's an energy that permeates the ecosystem here. It makes everyone excited, including me, to wake up every morning knowing that we can achieve things.
Okay, so now continuing on to our next speaker, Mr. Emmanuel Libo. He is the data practice lead at Accenture here in Luxembourg, and he has over 20 years of international consulting experience and puts his strong technical and organizational skills to work for Accenture's clients in their IT transformation and digital strategy. Let's welcome Emmanuel for his presentation entitled Mirrored World, the Power of Massive Intelligent Digital Twins. Emmanuel, after you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And actually, good morning, everybody. As explained, I'm Emmanuel Libo. I'm leading the data practice at Accenture Luxembourg. This is a great pleasure for me to be with you today, to finally reconnect all together physically. I must say I'm particularly happy that it's actually happening here at the ICT Spring of Luxembourg. Today, I will present you one of the 5 key trends of the Accenture technology vision for this year 2021. And this trend is called Mirror World. And in order to introduce you with this concept, I will simply start by asking you a simple question. Do you know this movie? I assume that you all know this movie, right? Or at least you know the true story of this NASA mission, Apollo 13, actually the third attempt from the NASA to land the crew onto the moon in 1970. And as we know, this mission didn't succeed due to an outage in an oxygen tank. But there is one particular sequence I particularly enjoy in this movie. Is this moment where basically an army of engineers are implementing a simulator of the rocket made of pieces of wood assembled with some sensors connected to a computer, which was gathering data to basically recreate the ecosystem of the platform, of the rocket, sorry. in order to identify the root cause and the fix. And the reason why I particularly enjoy this sequence is simply because here Hollywood has captured what was probably the very first digital twin of the history. And a bit more than 50 years later, we can definitely state that this was the first step in the direction of something which is, whatever we like it or not, strongly influencing our day-to-day life, which is the massive capture and analysis of data. Whatever we do, whatever we are entertaining, working, traveling, exercising, we are producing data. We are leaving traces in the digital world of which are mirroring the way we are behaving and we are interacting in the real world. And this is actually from where this concept of mirrored world is arising. And this has been made possible, obviously, with a combination of new technologies, which are actually also capabilities that companies need to acquire if they want to get benefit of these mirror worlds. These are IoT and connected devices to capture this data. These are new technologies of databases to basically store this data in high volume, high variety, high velocity. It's also with the support of cloud computing, which is providing infinite scalability to treat this data. And finally, it's thanks to new generation of algorithms based on artificial intelligence to basically generate insights and prediction out of this data. Because this is from where the value comes, right? From these insights and predictions. And I know that this is actually raising already a few questions. First question that might come to your mind is, okay, but can we really trust in those predictions? I mean, okay, it's one thing to simulate a rocket, but at the end of the day, a rocket is still a machine, right? As complex as it can be, it's a deterministic environment responding to very well-defined rules. But can we really rely on those models and algorithms pretending that they can basically simulate non-deterministic personas, such as human behavior, traffic on the road, commercial exchanges? Well, the answer is yes, as soon as the problem statement that this algorithm has to solve is well-defined and precise enough. Let me give you a concrete example. I mean, is there anything more complex to simulate than the human psychology? I think we are all unique, we're all having our complexity, but I invite you to have a look at this study that the University of Lausanne has basically published, where they took a panel of 230 people, asking them to respond to a questionnaire in order to establish their psychological profiling according to 7 major criteria. And it turned out of this study that actually this psychological profiling could have been deducted not from the questionnaire, but simply by plugging an artificial intelligence behind their smartwatch. I mean, the quality of your sleep, how often you are exercising, your heartbeat, it tells a lot of things about your stress resistance, if you are introvert, extrovert, what's your social style, and so on. So I think this example is also remembering us that we have certain responsibilities and also an ethic to follow in the way we are treating this data. But it's also very powerful to demonstrate how insightful these algorithms can be as soon as they are leveraging 7 to 10 measures, variables, no more. But these variables need to be well chosen, and this is actually the secret sauce, if I may say, of the data scientist. The second question that might come to your mind is, okay, so we say that it needs to be 7 well-chosen variables, and we see here this example that I took around the smartwatch is in the end of the GAFAM and pure digital players, but my company is not a pure digital player, is not a GAFA. Do I have valuable data in my databases? Can I leverage insight out of my data? And again, the answer is also yes. You don't need to be a pure digital player to have valuable data in your databases. And let me take another example here of this well-known food and beverage company, Unilever. And I like this example because I think we'll all agree that if there's one thing in the world that will never become digital, this is food, right? So that's why I like this example. And basically, Unilever has implemented, with the help of Accenture, a project in one of their factories in Brazil, where basically they have embedded in their machines some IoT sensors to basically capture characteristics influencing the productivity of the production chain. These characteristics are actually analyzed in real time by an artificial intelligence, which is adjusting in real time the parameters of the production in order to optimize the productivity. Basically, Unilever managed through this project to generate millions of euros savings in their energy consumption, as well as 2 to 3% of productivity gains of this production line. The next step for them is now to basically replicate this model in all the factories around the world, as well as to expand it also to optimize their supply chain. So you see, I think that's a good example to illustrate that actually your data has value. Whatever your business is, whatever your digital footprint is nowadays, you have valuable data that you need to valorize. And then the first question which is popping up is, okay, but then how? How to take benefits of these mirror worlds? Then my answer will be that it starts with the proper definition of a data strategy that needs to be aligned and serve your digital strategy. I mean, keep in mind that as valuable as your data can be, they are still a mean aiming at serving a purpose. Our world is changing. We all know that. It even accelerated during the COVID period. The commercial relationships are progressively moving away from the traditional supplier to customer model to move in a new paradigm where actually multiple parties are aggregating their services all together to propose a one-stop shop platform to their customer. The question that your company should answer, that you should answer actually, is which role do you want to play in those digital ecosystems? Do you see yourself as a service provider, platform provider? Do you want to develop a new pure digital offering, or do you want to focus on your core offering, leveraging digital channels to basically expand your sales volume? These are typically the questions that you need to address, and from there, understand how data can support this strategy, and what are the data capabilities that you need either to acquire or to enrich to support this. And from there, can start your transformation journey. If it comes. Voilà. And it starts by the implementation and the fortification of data foundational capabilities around data quality, and more particularly data consistency. You need to break the silos in your organization. You need to make sure that data is seen the same way, consistently, all across your organization. And it means that you need to put in place what we call a seamless data integration layer, or connectivity, if you wish, in charge of propagating and synchronizing the data all across your IT systems. It comes also with data completeness. We said that data scientists can achieve great things with no more than 7-10 measures. But what about if you're missing one? You need to be able either to acquire it or to partner with someone of your ecosystem having this data, so that you are jointly maximizing the value that you can get together out of your data. And finally, it goes through the implementation of data accessibility. Your employees, your collaborators needs to have an easy access to data. Of course, it needs to happen in line with your security policies, but still, this is a cornerstone to basically infuse in your organization a data-driven culture and a KPI-based monitoring of your business. But the implementation of these capabilities needs to come hand in hand with the implementation of use cases. You definitely don't need to invest millions of euros to build up ultra-mature capabilities before having your first use case in place that will basically generate the first euro of additional revenue. It goes together. Think about putting in place minimum viable data capabilities which are actually unlocking the most valuable use cases and develop them jointly, gradually, and progressively so that you will basically smooth and make linear your return on investment. And you see, this is actually how you're going to put in place a framework, a virtuous circle that will, iteration after iteration, gradually but sustainably reinvent and transform your organization to make it digital and data-driven. Voilà. So I think we all agree that the world is changing, and with changes are coming opportunities. It's time for your company to embrace the change, to get benefit out of it, and for that you need definitely to consider data as an asset, to valorize it as an asset through the small and gradual implementation of data capabilities that goes together with the implementation of use cases that will generate the value, so that you will strategically and sustainably transform your business to become truly data-driven and digital. And that's actually the way you're going to enter fast pace in the digital era. Thank you very much. I invite you to discover more about the key trends of the Accenture Technology Vision for 2021 while visiting this, our website. We will be obviously more than happy to welcome you to our booth and answer to any of your questions, and thank you for your attention.
Great. Emmanuel, thank you very much for your presentation. Just to go back to both Emmanuel, Benoit, and Calum's presentation on AI, they all pretty much centralize on one key theme, which is the importance of us, the people, with our intervention in digital society. As Emmanuel put very well, a rocket is just a rocket without humans doing anything with it. As Benoit stated, AI is for, by, and with the people. And lastly, with Calum, as he mentioned, we can look at this kind of technology as a utopia, dystopia, but it probably would be best as a protopia, as he spoke about at the end of his presentation. So before taking a lunch break, I would like to introduce our final speaker for this morning. He is the co-founder of TechBall, the world's fastest growing sport, and the chairman of FITech, which is the International TechBall Federation. He is an international speaker on technologies used in sports and is a PhD candidate in the Doctoral School of Military Sciences, specializing in computer vision and artificial intelligence. As TechBall continues to disrupt the common sports industry, Victor's presentation is aptly titled, Disruptive Technologies Shape the Future of Sports. And he will show us how TechBall may be the future of sports and sports technology. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Victor Huzar.
Lunch, obviously, it's probably the most difficult to speak, but don't worry, I'm going to do a little bit different presentation than most people do. Because I am a researcher for the Hungarian military, despite being the inventor, one of the inventors of TechBall, which is probably the easiest sport to comprehend. It's a curved ping-pong table, and we play football on it. So this is the world's fastest growing sport. You know, it's most likely it will be an Olympic sport if we go like this. We have now 120 federations all over the world. And if breakdancing is an Olympic sport, TechBall will definitely be one. But I am an international speaker with probably the most well-known footballers like Ronaldinho and all these guys in front of, big tech audiences. Because what I do and what I have been doing is computer science, and it is certainly using computer vision for certain defined reasons. Now what you see is what I see when I talk about a Tesla. So a Tesla car is self-driving, it's an autopilot, as you know. But what I see is 12 ultrasonic sensors and 8 surround cameras and a radar which can see when it's foggy, when it's mist, when we don't see. And this is how you put together the different sensors and the computer vision, so you synchronize the information. And that's what we see when we use UAVs, the drones, as you call them, because they have the optical sensors, the cameras, so we see everything. And that's what military does. And without going into classified information, life has changed. Biometrics, face recognition, all of this is happening. And when you talk about CCTV for the security of a town, and you want to see real time there is a problem, there is a danger, that's where computer vision and object detection comes into place. We need to know and we need to flag the problems. But in sports, there is way too much money why they invented these systems. If there is $1 billion industry, then you need to make sure that the decisions are fair. And that's why they implemented goal line technology. Goal line technology is 7 cameras on each side, 14 altogether, and there is a server which real-time can transmit the data, and believe it or not, they teach the system before the games. They need to make sure that that ball which is used during the game is taught to the system. There are, of course, sports ethical questions as well. Is it good that goal line technology can mean emotionally a roller coaster? You're happy and then you're not happy because they canceled the goal. This is what happened when France scored a goal, which wasn't a goal. This is one of the first times when goal line technology was in such a situation, and everyone was happy in the stadium. And that time, the review was a bit longer. And then, was it a goal? Yes. So everyone became happy. Is this good for sport or not? It's not my job to decide, but certainly it's shaping the way sport is. Another good example of cameras used, the hardware used in sport is, of course, Hawkeye. We all know this, and you might ask, what is the accuracy of Hawkeye? Is it 100% accurate? The answer is almost. There is a 3.6 millimeter where Hawkeye can go wrong. And certainly that is a very slim chance of Hawkeye going wrong, but it can happen, and it does happen when some players complain, when they say that the Hawkeye went wrong. But Hawkeye is also using very expensive technology, many cameras, and make it a delayed real-time decision. But the reason why sports technology is shaping the future is because the sport has been now involved in business so much. Esports is a steady growth of 12%. We are talking with billions here. So the future of sport, therefore, is going to change based on the non-physical and the physical activities and the level of the activities people put in. If you are playing a shooter game, a first-person shooter, certainly that's going to be something where we hardly can say it's a sport activity. On the other hand, there are already some hybrid, physically extended versions of sports, and the reason why I'm here today is to show you how does that work. How do we use a virtual platform and a so-called human activity recognition using computer vision and artificial intelligence? Because what we have seen before with Tesla, goal line technology, and Hawkeye, that they are very expensive hardwares. They are really expensive to implement, and you're not going to get it in your home unless you're a billionaire and you have a tennis court and Hawkeye. The Olympism is also looking at it, but they don't call it e-sport. E-sport is the first-person shooter. The virtual sport is when there is a human physical activity and you are comparing your result to others doing human physical activity, but you are not at the same physical location. For example, cycling is a good example. There are now 5 sports in this initiative. They are called the Virtual Olympic Series, when people at home using a special designed home spinning bike can race against each other. So that is one example. The other is rowing, which has been introduced. Sailing is more virtual, but you have to know how to react to wind.
The win in the Olympic Virtual Series.
Gran Turismo was the kind of example when it's not shooting, but your skill as a racer, as a driver. So the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is looking at it because of the amount of business it can mean, the target audience, the youngsters, and so on. And eventually, Asian Games, which is the Asian Olympic Games, they already included e-sport as an official competition sport to their program. So what is the future then? Well, the future is the EAR, the human activity recognition, because the big difference between this guy and a Tesla is that he's using his smartphone. And when you look at your smartphone, that is a device which has been designed, and the hardware has been designed and updated from year to year by the biggest producers like Apple and so on. And your hardware, your smartphone, has cameras in your front, in the back, and it has many sensors. You know, it can detect the light. It can artificially put extra light, you know, the ISO sensor and so on. There is, you know, everything, acceleration sensors. So using a smartphone, we are able to detect the human activity. We are able to detect your skeleton, of course your face, of course your movements, and of course any object. Let it be a ball, let it be anything. We just need to teach the system. We just need to teach the algorithm who is who and what is what. In terms of people, it's easy. People are people. Skeleton is skeleton. The difference is maybe the kid and the adult. The ball, the same. You know, what kind of ball? Every ball has a gravity as well. So what we are able to do is to even renew education of physical education. If there is a pandemic, how do you do physical education for the kids at school, at home? Using a smartphone, we are able to do that. We can even connect all the kids, and they can compare themselves not just to each other, but even to famous football players or basketball players. So make it interactive. There can be races and so on and so on. All you need is a smartphone, which you already have. This is the future of sport. So I am the lead researcher for Skiller, which is a world-leading technology in detection of ball. We are able to detect with any smartphone, within any lighting condition, a ball and the skeleton and the player who uses it. So you put down your phone, and we are able to track the ball and tell the number of touches you had, which body part did you use. We can compare the percentage results to Ronaldinho, Cafu, whoever famous player who we just taught. The system was taught. And this teaching is the key. You know, teaching is in education, like you teach your kids. For us, artificial intelligence is like a kid. We have to tell what is a ball and what is not a ball. This is like a deep neural network. And eventually then, once it has been taught with thousands, 10,000s or 100,000s of examples, it can decide for itself. But there are a lot of algorithmic other teaching methods, because people want to cheat, people want to do spoofing. So we have to tell not just what a ball is, we have to tell how does a ball fall down because of gravity. Otherwise you just play with a balloon. Would that happen that if you are dribbling with a ball, that your hand is next to your knee, and so on and so on and so on. So as you can see, with these technologies, using just a smart device, we are able to track your conditions, your activity, and we can bring in such in a pandemic time, for the home schooling, a new physical education, a new lecture that parents actually can support. Because what do you want? Do you want your kids to play first-person shooters, or do you want your kids to do some activity? And it's not space-consuming. At TechBall, we have been doing these tests with different lighting conditions. You can see that within very poor lighting conditions, they must work. Like a Tesla. You know, when it's raining, when the camera doesn't see that much, then the radar is helping out, the ultrasensors are helping out, the ultrasound sensors. So they come together. This is how we synchronize computer vision. This is how we want the artificial intelligence to know exactly what the camera sees, but with the information we receive from the sensors. And the sensors can be hardware like the ultrasound sensors or the radar, or it can be like a gyroscope in your phone. And that's how we get the information in real time. Because what is key is how do you real time get the information. Goal line technology wouldn't work if 2 minutes later we would get the result. So the computing power is tremendous. For a Tesla, you know, they have these GPUs of 40% more computing powers. The frame per second is 200, extremely high. And that's what you see, that in real time, just an old iPhone within poor lighting conditions can exactly show the trajectory, the coordinates of the ball. And using visualization, they can draw like Hawkeye where exactly that ball landed. And when you think about these objects, you know, it's easy to do it in sports. Actually, it's much easier than you would think, because the ball is not that fast, you know, compared to, for example, you know, like a first-person shooter game. Obviously, what do you see there? It's like crazy, lot of action. But here, it's measurable. In Hawkeye, tennis ball can be very fast, but human activity recognition at home, you are not going to be like Roger Federer. So this is more the grassroots of sport. This is how it's going to change. And certainly it's good for physical education, but imagine when, with Skiller, for example, you have money. It's like poker, you know? You win money in a tournament where 10,000 people can play at the same time. And then the percentage compares and there is a knockout phase. And because I'm a researcher for the military, I want to show you a little bit of the technology itself. How do you teach the system? But this is what we do in a fast-forwarded version. We are having different videos, and we tell on that video where is the ball at which frame. And then, once you have enough, and then you have thousands of people downloading the application and doing it themselves, then you get a system which has a very high accuracy of telling what is a ball and where is that ball and what did you do with that ball. And of course, you know, to end this presentation, is it going to replace playing sports? Well, I hope not. I hope not. If you ask me, this is for pandemic time, and this is for making life a little bit more compact, that at home kids can do, besides PlayStation and other activities, some sports using their smartphone. That's the reaction to the future of sport. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Victor. A very interesting presentation. Again, you can find his app Skiller on the app stores. And also for TechBall, if you just check right outside of this room, you will find the TechBall table, as well as Christina and Alex to help teach and give more information about the sport. And so that being said, this wraps up this morning's Digital Summit. I want to give a very special thanks to the Farvest team for all of their work. And to all of you, I hope that all of the presentations and the speeches met and exceeded your expectations. Thank you again, and we'll see you next year. Take care.